in the grand halls of a distant kingdom, where sunlight streamed through stained glass and the scent of fresh parchment mingled with that of blooming roses, lived Prince Arav. His days unfolded in comfort. Cushions were fluffed before he sat. Meals arrived piping hot at the mere mention of hunger, and not even the morning breeze dared disturb him before he was ready. Born into privilege, Arav assumed this rhythm would carry him forever. The world, orderly and pleasing, existed, it seemed, to serve his every wish. Arav would languidly gaze upon the golden courtyards, half-heartedly listening to his tutors as they spoke of history and politics. Why must I learn the details? He thought. One day I will be king, and the wise shall advise me. Why worry when others do the work? It was easier to drift through the days, letting life's responsibilities hang, waiting for someone else to lift them. His father, King Samrat, watched with a weary eye. The king had once hoped Arav would grow into a noble leader, but the prince's ease grew into habit, and that habit into character. The king's counselors, old and wise, feared that when the time came, the prince's hand would falter if asked to wield the scepter in earnest. But fate does not allow idleness forever. Whispers began seeping into the palace from distant villages. The neighboring kingdom, once an ally, had grown hungry for land and power. One by one, towns near the border sent word. The enemy approached. Merchants stopped their wagons at the palace gates, bringing stories of abandoned homes and fields trampled by foreign boots. One morning, as dawn broke and the first anxious shouts echoed within the city walls, Arav was roused from his slumber, not by the gentle voice of his attendant, but by the hurried grasp of his father. The king's face, usually kind, was grave. "Arav," he said, "the kingdom stands on the edge. Our people will look to you for guidance. You must learn to lead. You must learn to act." Arav was confounded. The days of ease slipped from his fingers, replaced by the sharp urgency of the hour. But habits built over years are not easily broken. At meetings, he would promise to organize supplies, to rally the people. But then, sigh, distracted as hours slipped away. Instructions were forgotten, promises left unmet. Soon, frustration mounted. The king saw, the council saw, and worst of all, Arav's own heart began to sense the stirrings of shame. Desperate not to fail, the king summoned an unexpected ally. The kingdom's senior advisor, Dronacharya, revered in the palace for his wisdom and calm. The mentor's gaze was steady and his words measured. One afternoon he approached Arav in the quiet of the royal library. "Prince," Dronacharya began, "leadership is not only the art of command, but the mastery of time. Every second we waste is an opportunity lost, not just for ourselves, but for all our people." Arav, pride bruised but curiosity piqued, leaned in. "But what difference can a moment make? There are so many hours in a day, surely there is enough time for everything." Dronacharya smiled, the lines on his face deepening with kindness and patience. "Allow me to show you," he said. And so began a different kind of education, one not of books and lectures, but of experience. The mentor led Arav through the churning kitchens, where chefs worked in precise harmony. "Notice how every movement matters," Dronacharya pointed out. "Delay the bread by a minute and it burns. Miss the turn of a ladle and the stew is ruined. So it is with the affairs of the kingdom." He took Arav to the training grounds where soldiers drilled in perfect unison. Victory is built in seconds. One man's hesitation and all suffer. Then to the farmers in the fields, racing the sun to bring in the harvest. Time for them is not just a measure of hours, but of survival. Realization dawned slowly. For the first time, Arav saw the invisible threads weaving lives together. A single lost minute multiplying across hundreds, thousands, bringing loss or gain to countless people. Dronacharya began instructing the prince in practical ways. Mornings started early, each hour mapped. Tasks were broken into precise steps, with goals for each day. Arav kept a journal, marking achievements large and small. When he forgot an assignment and saw the knock-on effects, Delays in the kitchens, messengers sent running in confusion. He felt the sting of his own choices. Resistance gave way to responsibility. As days passed, buildings rose along the border, supplies flowed with ever greater efficiency, and the people glimpsed a new Arav emerging, focused, decisive, and above all, present in every moment. Dronacharya stressed the value of delegation, not as a way of passing off work, but as a means of making the best use of everyone's talents. But true delegation, he cautioned, means you must clearly communicate and always follow up. You own the outcome, even if you're not the one laying the brick. Arav learned to plan the week ahead, to anticipate crises before they grew, and, crucially, to check in with the people who now counted on him. Every hour felt fuller. Fatigue was replaced by a steady sense of purpose. He saw that being a leader was not about giving orders, but about guiding, supporting, and organizing others so that together they could move mountains. Outside, war continued to threaten, but within the kingdom's borders, hearts began to rally. The people saw their prince, not in the palace's shadowy corners, but beside them in the marketplaces, on the walls, and in the fields. He addressed them with sincerity and clarity, his voice steady, his eyes bright with newfound conviction. The enemy finally arrived at the borders, but they found not a kingdom in chaos, but one united in purpose. Troops moved as one, supplies were marshaled swiftly, and every citizen played their part. The prince that had once stood apart now stood at the center. In time, peace was restored. The kingdom, battered but unbroken, sang songs of their victory. Arav, once the laziest of princes, had become a leader in truth, his lesson hard-won and lasting. He understood now that life's true richness lies not in idle comfort, but in the careful stewardship of each fleeting second. And in the legacy of diligence he left, his people flourished for generations to come, carried by the rhythms of a leader who learned, at last, the weight of a moment.